thank you for appearing, Secretary Becerra. Let's go back to an earlier discussion that you started. In the No Surprises Act, Congress rejected inclusion of federal benchmark payment standard. And when there are disputes over payment rates, the resolution process laid out in statute lists mandatory and equally weighted factors that must be considered by the independent dispute resolution process, the IDR. One of these factors is the qualifying payment amount, the QPA, defined as the median of health plans' contracted rates, which should reflect a typical contracted rate for a particular service by plan and provider type in a particular geographic area. The QPA was not included as a final payment amount or a payment benchmark, only as a reference point for arbiters if payment disputes advances to the IDR. To date, I've heard multiple widespread concerns that the QPAs calculated by health plans are artificially low, and in some cases, lower than the Medicare fee-for-service rate. I've also heard from providers that health plans are overwhelmingly relying on the QPA as a default initial payment rate, even though the statute does not contemplate the use of the QPA in that manner. Section 102 of the No Surprises Act includes the explicit authority for an audit process of health plans. You mentioned that earlier. You mentioned the staffing issues to be able to achieve those audits. But since 2022, you have been required to report to Congress on these audits. Mr. Secretary, since you have failed to report to Congress on QPA audits, I would like for you to address today in front of us how many audits the agency has initiated, your agency, how many audits have been initiated, and how many of these audits have been completed?
Congressman, thank you for the question. And I know because you have been very engaged on this whole No Surprises Act implementation, that you recognize that the way the process and the system launched really made it difficult to proceed forward with a clear understanding of how it would be implemented well, because much of the implementation went to court. We also found that the number of cases coming through, complaints coming through, was dramatically higher. And so much of the data that would help us explain how No Surprises Act will function moving forward, especially when it comes to the independent dispute resolution process, are barely beginning to come in. And so when it comes to the audit, what we're trying to make sure we do is we get information as quickly as we can. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't always have sight. That independent resolution process, as you know, does not involve the HHS. So ultimately, the resolution, the end result, the outcome, we don't get information on that. And until we get information from some source, hopefully from the winning party, we don't have an opportunity to act to try to change things. And so I wish I could give you more detail and give you more data, but we're now only beginning to see the process evolve to a point where it's now functioning the way I think.
Have any audits been initiated?
I can get back to you on what audits specifically have been done and any results from that. Be more than willing to give you closer insight if you haven't already gotten that from us.
We have not. We have requested that, and thank you.
Let me follow up with you on that.
And I appreciate you follow up, particularly in writing, because we would ask for a prompt response. Number of audits that have been initiated, and number of audits that have been completed. I wrote a letter to you in April of 2023 expressing my concern over CMS' broad and overreaching definition of what a single qualified source of drug was. And when you select life-saving drugs to price set under the Inflation Reduction Act, I stated my disappointment that this overly broad definition, which could capture multiple drugs at once for negotiation, and highlighted the potential detriments of such a far-reaching policy and how that could affect current and future innovation. So today, I'm asking you the same question. Will your administration maintain the uniform standard supported by the FDA and consistent with the statute that a qualifying single-source drug would be defined as a distinct new drug application or biologic license application? In other words, will your administration commit to incentivizing innovation by ensuring that only one drug, not multiple drugs, is chosen at once for government price setting?
Congressman, first, we don't price set. Secondly, the process that we engage in to negotiate fairer drug prices is set forth by the law, by Congress. You all gave us the rules on how to do that. And we want to make sure that no gaming can occur so that a drug manufacturer can't use techniques to try to avoid having to have its drugs come under the price negotiation process.
But one drug versus a classification of drug. Will you commit that you will use this negotiation that you described to implement this in one drug versus a classification of drugs?
We are implementing the law as it was passed. Otherwise, the courts would have stopped us from doing so. So what I guess what I'm saying to you is that I don't agree with the way
So you're
you
looking to the
characterize
courts
it.
for oversight as opposed to the intent of the legislation?
I'm sorry?
You're looking for the courts? You said
No. We've moved forward. We've made clear how we're going to do this. If someone didn't like the way we're doing it, I guarantee you they would have sued us. All 10 of the companies that own the 10 drugs that are part of negotiation today have taken us to court. And so what I'm saying to you is if we were doing something wrong, we would have found out from the courts by now, I think.
My time has expired. I thank you for
Gentleman's time has
appearing today. I
expired.
yield.
Dr. Shire is recognized for